From the studios of NBC 12 and ABC 25, this is First Coast News at 6.
And we're following some breaking news. Just in the past 15 minutes, we have learned Lonna Barton, of course, the mother of missing toddler Lonzie Barton, is likely to testify in court tomorrow as part of the case against Ruben Ebron. This is according to her attorney. Now, Lonna Barton's testimony is part of a plea deal that she accepted earlier this week, in which she pleaded guilty to charges of child neglect and lying to police. And on those, she could face up to 6 years in prison. Sentencing is set at her next hearing, and that is February 1st. Well, the 5-year-old girl, believed to be the sister of Lonzie Barton, will not testify next week in the trial against Ruben Ebron.
His attorneys wanted to question the little girl about what happened the night her brother disappeared, but they have now withdrawn that request. On your side's Kenny Marrow is live at the Duval County Courthouse with more on this tonight. Kenny.
That's correct, Jeannie. That decision was made just before 2 o'clock hearing today. The hearing today was the focus of the information that's in Ebron's cell phone. The prosecution would like to have that information entered into evidence. The defense attorney, Mr. Ebron's attorney, would like to keep it out. In question is how did law enforcement obtain that information? Now, today in court, Detective Sean Corsi, who heads the homicide unit, testified for about 45 minutes as to how they were able to get that information. He took the stand and he said on July 24th, Ebron came to the department to help assist in finding Lonzie Barton, and he began cooperating in an interrogation. And during that interrogation, he gave them permission to look at his phone, but somehow sometime during the 3 hours, he asked for his phone back, and at that point, he was told that the phone is being seized. Now, I spoke with Mr. Ebron's dad today after court, not only about that, but about Lonna Barton now becoming a witness against his son.
I just feel she had to do what she had to do. So I'm not really worried about that. My thing is I look at it took 6 months, and that's the mother. So 6 months for you to want to come straight and now to testify against who you were with.
All right. Now, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Judge Mark Borrello is expected to make a decision as to whether the evidence will be admitted. Mark Bachman, who is our legal expert, he knows everything about obtaining this type of information, and clearly it sounds marginal as to what law enforcement should have done.
Well, from the onset, I mean, he's not in custody. They're asking him for an interview. They're trying to determine the whereabouts of the child, and they're going with that. Whether they believe it or not, they don't have to tell him what they believe, but they didn't tell him he was in custody, nor did he ask. They did ask for verbal consent to have the phone, which is okay too, and I think they got a DNA sample from him as well, and they got a waiver of that written from him as well. Probably should have done a written waiver on the phone at the time they did the DNA. They probably would have been a little bit cleaner in the sense of getting into the phone. They were okay getting the phone initially. Once he asked to leave and once he asked for the phone back, that's when it's problematic if you don't give the phone back.
And in fact, that was part of their argument today, that once he asked for the phone back, it revoked whatever consent he had given.
He's withdrawing his consent at that point, basically. He wants his phone back, so he's withdrawing the consent. They didn't tell him he was under arrest, and they let him go, so the phone has to go with him at that point.
Your 35 years of law enforcement, what is the protocol?
I probably would have done a written waiver along with the waiver that they did for the DNA right up front. Some of the information they're going to be able to get, the historical cell site tracking, the times of calls, the calls together, the total information you're going to get. Depending on the service provider, it just depends. Some service providers aren't as law enforcement friendly in giving that data, but there are some that are. They wouldn't be able to get his text information unless they have the device, and they wouldn't probably be able to get his phone directory information. Either one they'd be able to get unless they have the device, because most service providers aren't interested in that. It's free texting or free long distance calling, whatever.
If they had a written consent, there wouldn't be an argument today.
They would have been fine with that, and then they'd had the consent. Even with the written consent, he could have said, I want my phone back. They'd still have to probably give it back at that point.
All right. Mark Bachman, thank you for sharing some perspective with us. Again, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, the judge is supposed to render his decision. Back to you.
Barrow, thank you, Ken. A terrifying home invasion in Lake City. Police say a woman was held at gunpoint and raped. A group of men, they say, ransacked her home looking for money. It happened just before midnight, Early Street and Sago Glen in Lake City. Roger Weeder reports from Columbia County tonight.
Police don't have a motive for the home invasion that happened in this Lake City neighborhood. It happened around midnight Tuesday, and it started with a knock on the door with a woman being raped at gunpoint. Police are only providing a general area of where it happened, but life here has changed. News of the home invasion that involved 3 or 4 men has homeowners saying why, with one lady who did not want to be identified saying, "You never open your door late at night."
Like I said, if you ain't got a key, don't come to my door. If you ain't got no key, you ain't got no business here.
They began demanding for her to tell them where the money was, where her valuables were. They proceeded to ransack the apartment. They overturned furniture. They pulled drawers out of the dressers. The
victim treated and released, the suspect still at large. Police say the home invasion is not part of the landscape in this neighborhood, with the warning, though, do not open your door late at night. From Lake City, Roger Weeder, First Coast News, NBC 12, ABC 25.
An 11-month-old has died one day after being rushed to the hospital in Gainesville. The mother's boyfriend could face charges in this. Dwight Tyre III was arrested on charges of aggravated child abuse and felony battery. He told investigators that a dog knocked something over and that bruised the baby's head, but a medical examiner says the injuries are consistent with shaken baby syndrome.
Very tragic. This is one of those cases that affects the whole community. Any homicide or any death is serious, but when you're talking about an innocent, sweet baby, it strikes everybody.
The child's mother told investigators her boyfriend was the last person with her son. Tyre now could face murder or perhaps manslaughter charges.
It's been nearly 6 years since Haley Cummings disappeared from her home in Putnam County. Today, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed photo of what they believe she would look like today. Now, here's the picture of Haley at 5 years old. That's how old, you remember, she was at the time of her disappearance. That was back in 2009. Now, here is what officials say she might look like at 12 years old. The little girl disappeared from her home in Satsuma back in February 2009. We reached out to Haley's great-grandmother today, Annette Sykes, by phone. She looked at the picture of what her great-granddaughter might look like at age 12, and here's what she said.
I guess it's a fairly good likeness. It's hard to say because I remember little Haley, the way she was when she went missing. And it's hard for me to picture her any other way.
This case is still an open investigation, is being overseen by detectives with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. New at 6 o'clock tonight, JSO and JFRD have now completed an internal investigation into a controversial racial image. The image was found on a computer at Fire Station 18 last month. A firefighter's face was photoshopped on what appeared to be the body of a Middle Eastern man, and a caption below read, "Jingle bombs." Chief Curtis Wilson will release the findings of this investigation tomorrow morning at 11 in front of JFRD headquarters.
Well, driving into downtown this weekend is going to be a little bit different if you take I-95. There will be another lane shift as part of the construction there at the Overland Bridge project. Katie Jeffries steers us through it.
Well, due to the construction with the Overland Bridge project, we're going to have a significant traffic shift happening Friday through Monday. So we're going to break it down day by day for you here. Now, this is occurring near the San Marco area. On Friday, Main Street, Prudential Drive, and the Acosta ramps there are going to close Friday evening. Also, Atlantic Boulevard and Phillips Highway, those ramps right here, those ramps will close as well. Now, on Saturday, here's what's going to happen. You're only going to have 2 northbound lanes, and they're actually going to be shifting traffic a little bit onto what looks more like a service road almost in that area. So just 2 lanes. The Main and the Acosta ramp will reopen from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., but it'll close again overnight. The Atlantic and Phillips Highway northbound ramps there, those will stay closed. Now, on Saturday, or on Sunday rather, I-95 northbound remains at just 2 lanes. Again, you're going to be experiencing that shift through the area. The Main and the Acosta ramps will reopen again at 6 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. and Atlantic and Phillips will remain closed. Now, Monday, this is important because a lot of people are going to be commuting in the morning and experiencing this. I-95 northbound will open 3 lanes on that new road. Atlantic and Phillips ramps will reopen as well, but traffic still will be somewhat shifted through the area, and you might see people who are confused. So Monday morning, make sure you're planning in extra time. Important things to note, this is only impacting the northbound side. The southbound side will remain unimpacted by this. Prepare yourself for delays because there's going to be a lot of people trying to figure out this new shift, and use caution when you are approaching this area. There are going to be officers there assisting people. It's going to be slow, and people are probably going to be confused, as you can expect whenever you're going through construction areas. So really be cautious going through there. We have more information about this on firstcoastnews.com if you'd like to look over it this weekend. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Katie.
No winners in last night's Powerball drawing, so we are in for a record jackpot this weekend. Just how much? That's next.
Plus, find out why the winning strategy for you might be playing in the office pool. Now, we've met a group, they've won jackpots twice, and they're going to share their secrets tonight.
And while the cold, windy event we had is heading away and temperatures are moderating, off to the west of us, a new wet event over the Gulf. We'll take a look at when it will impact us in just a few minutes.